fog sneaks up the bay. And when sirens call your name, I beside you will remain. I'll remind you of the day. You're just a boy trying to pretend. Please you are a man till I'm never quite convinced. But now you are mature, please take the test. Now it's time to rest. Now it's time to rest. You're wicked and man. You know me the same. I defend you to the grave. I'll remind you of the day. You're just a boy trying to pretend. Please you are a man till you're never quite convinced. But now you are mature, please take the test. Now it's time to rest.
Tense. Yeah. Thank you, Tense. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming. This is our 100th podcast episode. We are so glad you're here.
Yeah. Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome. This is happening.
Also, tonight is our season 5 premiere. So we've got people here. We've got people online. I'm watching YouTube right now. There's 972 people saying hi. And then this will go on our podcast on Monday.
Yep.
And it'll be part of our normal Q&R,
Yep.
question and response.
Yep.
How you doing, Tim?
There's the Bible on the screen.
There's the Bible on the screen.
Imagine that.
This is the Logos Bible software that
Yep.
Tim's always on.
Yep. Yeah. Welcome, you guys. Here we're gonna dive into a whole bunch of detailed questions that listeners have been sending in over the last few weeks. We kind of opened up the gates, and so this is actually this topic is related to a video that we're going to release later this fall called God, as if all the other videos weren't about that too.
Yeah.
But just in a kind of a different way.
Yeah, we're doing a video on God, and we're
Yes.
trying to boil it down to
Yep.
it's going to be about 8 minutes long.
It's almost 8
Yeah.
minutes. Yeah.
And essentially, the video is it's trying to look at the Trinity, like what is in one sense.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
But it's a backdoor way to the Trinity.
Yeah, that's right. The video is going to be about the complex portrait of God in the Old and New Testaments, and how the concept of the Trinity, of God as 3 and 1, in the last quarter of the Bible is completely in sync and the natural development out of what the portrait of God in the first 3 quarters of the Bible. Some people see a disconnect. There's the one God of the Old Testament and then the 3 in 1, right? In the last quarter of the Bible, how do those two go together? And that it's hand in glove. But the way we approach that question usually makes it feel like a rake in a glove or something. I just came up with that, so I won't be using that again. But, just something like it kind of fits. You can make it fit. But so anyway, that's what the video is going to be about. And so to prep for that, John and I had about 20 plus hours of conversation.
Yeah. So for those of you here or online who are new to the podcast format and just know us from videos or don't know us at all, hi, welcome. When we make a video, Tim has a bunch of notes, and then he sits down with me and we walk through his notes, and I get to just pepper him with questions, and we work through the content until it makes enough sense that we can go away and write a really short script that turns into the video.
Yep.
So for the God video, we talked for 20 hours, not straight, but 20 hours total. and it was incredible.
Yeah.
And we've been releasing those on the podcast.
Correct.
There's been about 7 episodes, and we opened up like a can of worms because
Yeah.
we're talking about
Yeah.
the spirit world
Yes.
and
Yeah.
angels and
Yes.
the nature and identity of God.
Yeah. And we've both confessed many times as the series has gone on, and me in particular, this is the whole theme and concept of the spiritual realm and evil spirits and all. This is always the most weird part of a Christian worldview for me. And I had to own up to the fact about a year and a half ago that I've just been ignoring, unintentionally or intentionally. I'm not sure how these things work, but like suppressing it and screening it out because it bothers me and I don't know how to make sense of it. And it's hard for me to believe in, frankly. And so what I realized was I just need to head at this whole series of topics. And it's been one of these, you think maybe it's like when you think you know a person and then you start asking questions you've never asked before. And then you're like, I had no idea, this person that I've been with the whole time. And that's what the experience has been like.
I've realized that I've created for myself like a pretty naturalistic version of Christianity.
Yeah.
Like practically, that's
Yeah.
kind of how I was living.
Yeah.
There's certain ideas that I could put into a category that were spiritual, but just became normalized.
Yeah.
Like this idea of heaven or a divine being God.
Yeah.
But then everything else, just my spiritual tradition just really downplayed everything else,
Yes.
including the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just lived this very flattened out view of very naturalistic view I'm very comfortable with because most of the secular world, that's how we talk and think about things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this has been really challenging to talk about the spirit world.
Totally. Totally.
It just talking about the stars and
Yes.
it just feels like what are we doing?
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it turns out we're not just going to make one video. We're going to make 7 additional ones that we just thought of in the last few months.
Yeah, that's true.
To go at this whole set of topics.
Yeah.
But you'll hear more about that eventually.
So not only do I have a bunch of questions,
Yep.
we have a bunch of questions coming in from people all over.
Yep.
And what we want to do for this hour is we're going to do 2 30-minute blocks of questions and responses from Dr. Mackey.
Well, and from you.
Well, I'll just ask more questions. I'll do follow-up questions.
That's good. All right.
So let's do it.
Let us.
This first question is, and the people aren't here, so we're going to have people in the audience read on their behalf.
Yes.
So let's get a question. Oh, I don't think your mic's on.
Oh,
there it is.
There you go.
It is. What's up, guys? So I'm Hakeem Bradley asking the question on behalf of Parker Bullard from Twitter. And the question is, why does God say, let us make humanity in our image instead of let us make humanity in my image, if he is speaking to the divine council? And how does this affect the way we understand Imago Dei?
Thanks, Hakeem.
All right. Yeah, you want to restate it?
This question came in through Twitter.
Yeah.
And it was a question I was already thinking about.
Yeah.
So I was always taught that in Genesis 1, when God says, let us make God humans in our image, that's the Trinity talking.
Mm-hmm. Little internal conversation.
This is a little internal conversation amongst the
like you do.
triune God. And as we've had this conversation, it's very likely that this is actually talking about the divine council, which we've spent a lot of time discussing.
Yep.
So God up with the divine council, saying, hey, we're making humans. I'm making humans. And there's something special about these humans, made on the same day as animals, all made from the dirt. But these mammals are going to be special in that they're the image of God. And let us do that. And so his question was very astute. If the question, he said, God didn't say, let us make man in my image. He said, let us make man in our. So the image of the spiritual beings, the Elohim.
Yep.
What's the implications of that? Like, why would he say that? Why?
Yes.
I've always thought of it in terms of, I'm like God. I have the character of Yahweh in me in some way, and I'm reflecting that. Not the character or substance or whatever of of spirit beings in general.
Yep.
I've got the spirit world in me.
Yeah. Okay. So everything I'm about to say, even to me, sounds crazy, but it is actually what's going on in the biblical authors' minds.
Okay.
So I forget. This was a few episodes ago. We had both you asked this question, and then someone asked it in I think the first Q&R that we did in the series about the us, the let us make. And for people here in the room or watching, I've got my Bible nerd screen going here. So Genesis 1:26, out of the gate, let us. Who's noticed that before? Like most perceptive readers. And of course, the question is, who's the us? Right? Who is the us that I'm supposed to know is already on the scene? And that us is actually going to appear multiple times. God addresses in us in chapter 3 when he expels humanity from the garden, and he says humanity has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. When God goes down to inspect Babylon, he says, let us go down and see what trouble the humans are up to. There's multiple of these divine plurals throughout the Hebrew Bible. And if you look wider, I'm trying to summarize what we've already talked about. If you look wider in the Hebrew Bible, it's God talking to his staff team. And his staff team is made up of the host of heaven. Yeah? You've heard that phrase, the host of heaven. And the host of heaven, of course, are right here in verse 16. This is where God's making his divine counsel. The big light, the little light, and the stars. So I just looked this up today to fact check.
Okay.
So stars, kochavim, it appears 37 times in the Hebrew Bible.
Uh-huh.
And every single time, it's referring to a celestial being.
Every single time in the Bible.
Correct.
It's
In
not
the Hebrew
referring-
Bible. In the Hebrew Bible.
In the Hebrew Bible. It's
Yeah,
not referring to
the hosts of heaven. The hosts of heaven. And then at the ending, at the conclusion of, let's see, that's NIV. It's not going to help us here on this front. Here we go. The skies and the land were completed, all their hosts, the creatures on the land and the creatures in the sky, the host of the skies. Do you see that? The heavens
Mm-hmm.
and their hosts, the land and their hosts. Who are the land and their hosts? Humans and animals.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the hosts of the heavens?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the heavenly beings,
Yeah.
the stars.
And we spent a long time, just
did.
struggling with this.
Totally.
Just struggling.
Totally.
Because
Yeah. Yeah.
because you can get to the place where
Yeah.
and I'm where you can understand that an ancient people would look up at the sky and
Yeah.
think, oh, crazy, those are crazy, beautiful, radiant, glorious
Yes.
lights, they're moving around.
Yeah.
What are these things?
Yeah.
It's like they're alive, they're the gods, the
Mhm.
Elohim.
Mhm.
I get that.
Mhm.
But they're not. They're fireballs.
Mm.
They're suns. But Genesis 1, written in that ancient context,
Mhm.
is assuming that's the world that you're living in, and that's how you think about these. And
Just like Genesis 1 envisions a three-tiered universe.
Yeah.
Flat Earth,
right.
sky dome,
It's-
God,
yeah.
the whole deal.
So if that's tripping you out, it trips me out. It's okay.
But we're also looking to probe behind the theological meaning of this way of thinking. And so we talked about this at great length too, that when the lights are made, when the heavenly hosts are made, the first thing that they are called is symbols. They're symbols. So what do lights do? What do the stars do? They shine.
Yeah.
They shine. And so I'm being told that one of their primary purposes is to function as a signpost or a symbol to some source of light and glory and life that's greater than even these creatures.
Yeah.
And within a theistic worldview, I do believe that.
Hmm.
On the days I wake up and have a cup of coffee and have firm faith in that God exists, I look at the sun and I think that's a creature.
What?
That's a creature.
Why would you think that's a creature?
Within a theistic worldview, that thing hasn't existed forever.
Uh-huh.
It's a creation.
Oh, it's created.
It's created.
Okay.
Created the creature.
Okay.
It's a creature.
But it's not
Creator.
Yeah, I see what you're doing.
It's a created object. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, you get it. Yeah.
But it's not a divine being.
it's a symbol that points to, yeah, you got it.
It's a symbol that points
It's a ball
to
of gas. Yeah, totally.
ball gas. As far as you know, I've never been to one.
Yeah, neither have I. Okay, so anyway, we had a whole episode.
Yeah,
talking
so
about this.
sorry, I just get distracted.
But
I know,
we're
and I know
back-
there's
we're
people in
back-
the room that are asking the same questions in
Yeah,
their head.
and
So
we're back to it again. But this is crucially important. This is actually, I guess that sounds crazy. This is so important for understanding the storyline of the Bible.
yeah, and when I think about God and the divine council, I've never thought of God creating with
Yes.
a divine council. And someone just wrote on the YouTube chat, basically thinking this way of God with the divine council.
Yeah.
It almost feels like you're bringing God down a notch.
Oh, interesting.
And you've
Huh.
you've talked about it as delegated authority, like God,
Yes.
for whatever reason, the nature of God, he likes
Yeah.
to delegate authority.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the whole setup is you have the chief Elohim, chief God,
Mhm.
the chief spiritual being,
Right.
who's the creator and ruler of all, who wants to share his world
Mhm.
and run it and beautify it and make it cultivate through a partnership
Yeah.
with the celestial rulers and the terrestrial rulers.
Yeah.
Genesis 1 is giving us the
Yeah.
mirrored stories of
Okay.
heaven.
So what
and
does it
earth.
mean that the
Yeah.
terrestrial rulers
Yeah.
are made in the image of the celestial rulers?
Yeah,
What does that
totally.
mean?
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I'm pretty certain is what's happening.
Okay.
Is the idea is that even though it's an inversion of your expectations, the lights in the sky, it's clear how they're symbols
Mhm.
of the divine glory. They glow and
They're way above.
they're way above,
Yeah.
right? That's similar to God's transcendent authority and so on. So but the dirt bags down here, right?
Yeah.
Right? The dirt creatures, how do
Right.
they image? And so you guys, this is exactly, I keep bringing up Psalm 8. This is the single purpose of Psalm 8.
Mhm.
It's a reflection on Genesis 1 and how remarkable it is that God, the Creator's divine majesty and splendor, has been given as a crown to the dirtbags down here. You've crowned the dirtbags with the divine glory and majesty of the being that is above the heavens of the heavens.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a plot twist.
And so that's what it means when the author says, you made human a little lower than Elohim. And you can see our English translations. This is the New American Standard. New American Standard translates that line as God. But then they tell you in the footnote, well, it's the Hebrew word Elohim. So it could also refer to the other spiritual beings.
Yeah. Which is most likely.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Let us make human in our image. So humans are meant to be crowned with the glory and the light, the light
Mhm.
and the glory and the transcendence, even right alongside God and the spiritual beings. And this, of course, isn't what the human beings get when the human beings sin and are expelled from the garden. What do they get as their glorious garments? They get the garments of a dead animal wrapped around them as they leave the garden.
Yeah.
And so it's this great disappointment. Genesis 1-3 is about this lost potential. It's not a fall from perfection. It's about the loss of realizing something that could have been. And what could have been is humans partnering with God in ruling over all of creation.
In some angelic way. In some
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so this is so key. So in the book of, we're just going to race right here. In the book of Genesis, Joseph, he's the super important culmination of all the themes of the snake crusher, the seed of the woman. And he has this dream that makes, Joseph's dreams, makes his brothers angry. And one of his dreams is about the list of the celestial rulers in the same order they're given in Genesis 1, bowing down to him. He's having a dream about what an exalted human image of God would truly look like.
That the celestial beings will actually bow down.
It would be a human so unified with the divine that he...
Hey, you're going to rule angels.
Yes, totally. Yeah, Paul's whole concept in 1 Corinthians is about realizing... Well, hold on. Actually, let's Let's hold that for
Pause
a second.
that
Let's
one.
hold that for a second. So in the book of Daniel, for example, when you go to Daniel and he describes what the new creation and resurrection people of God are going to be like, lo and behold, what language does he use? Right? People will rise to eternal life and they will shine brightly. Oh, like what? Like the brightness of the expanse and like the stars. And it's not just a metaphor. I always just thought this was all metaphorical language.
Okay.
And it's symbolic language.
What's the difference?
Okay, well, actually, metaphor. We're going to show a video on metaphor. Actually, forget what I just said. I used to think that this was just a happy figure of speech.
Yeah.
It's a symbol.
But it's getting to something very
It's getting
important.
to something. It's the biblical vision of human existence is that we are made for so much more than we even realize.
Yeah.
And that our truest identity is to be so unified with God and partnering and ruling this world in the love and power of God that it would be easy to mistake a fully image of God bearing human with the divine glory itself.
And so, yeah, and you were telling me about Moses. He comes down from the mountain.
Moses
and
is
his
this.
face
That's
is
right.
shining.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly right. Totally.
Shining.
Yeah. Yeah. When Jesus goes up on a mountain
Or when
in
Jesus
Mark
goes up on the
chapter
mountain.
9,
Yeah.
and he starts talking with the two humans other than Enoch in the Bible who didn't die, who were taken up into God's presence and who both went to mountains
Yeah.
and experienced the glory, right? The divine glory. And what does Jesus do? Right? He starts glowing. He starts glowing like a star. I mean, what is this, right?
Yeah. It's a nice trick.
So this is Mark chapter 9. Yeah, so this is a really important part of the biblical storyline is humans are dirtbags that God in his grace wants to elevate to share in the divine rule. Like the heavenly beings who are themselves symbols of God's light and life and glory. Of course, they don't realize that, and then the whole storyline of the Bible is giving you images and pointers forward to the new creation, resurrection, destiny of humans, which is to, just another one, because I just thought of this the other day.
Someone on YouTube just thought you said Moses didn't die. So you were referring to Enoch and
I'm sorry, Enoch and Elijah.
and Elijah.
Sorry, yes, Moses and Elijah. Nobody knows where they're buried.
Oh, okay.
Nobody knows where they're buried.
Got it.
Enoch and Elijah didn't die. Thank you.
That's Stephen France.
But for example, Paul, the apostle, this is in Philippians chapter 2. He can just throw this out there and be like, hey, you know who you are as followers of Jesus in the world. You shine like stars. You're like stars shining. You're like, oh, that's a pretty figure of speech. No, dude, he really means it. Your star is shining, because at the end of chapter 3, he's going to be, listen, our citizenship is in the new creation, in the heavenly realm. And it's not where we're going to go. It's where the heavenly is going to come to us in the new creation and transform our dirtbag bodies into the glorious body, the star-like bodies.
Some new kind of body.
Yeah, so stars is one of the main images to talk about the glorious nature of the new humanity in the new creation. It's crucially important for the biblical storyline. So this is all going back to let us make human in our image.
Yeah.
Essentially, what I think the point is that us and our is meant to make us see that the human ideal is to transcend our mortal dirtbag limits and to live beyond.
But we won't stop being terrestrial beings.
No.
We will just be this kind of renewed, like glowing.
Well, again, glowing. So I have no idea what I'm talking about right now. I'm just trying to represent what I think the biblical authors are saying.
Yeah.
And so, their concept is that we live like a subhuman existence that we think is the full meal deal.
Yeah.
But actually is
we're missing out on a piece.
It's just the fries, not the burger.
I always wished.
I hate McDonald's.
I always wished when I got a Happy Meal growing up, you could get a burger, and then instead of fries, you could get McNuggets. I put those in the same category, McNuggets and fries, and it didn't work out that way, and it always bummed me out. Okay. That was 26 minutes, and we answered one question. Can
Yeah,
we try to throw in another
that's-
one real
that's how
quick.
we usually do it.
Let's do one more question,
Okay, yeah.
What do we
let's
got?
the next one.
and then we'll take a break.
Andrew Wyatt.
I'm Rebecca, reading this question on behalf of Andrew Wyatt from Nottingham, UK. Does an emphasis on the heavenly council lead people away from a Trinitarian view of God and see Jesus as one of the lesser Elohim? For instance, from my limited understanding, that's how Jehovah's Witnesses view Jesus.
And I think it's a good follow-up question
Mhm.
in that of
Mhm.
this idea of, you start populating the spirit world and talking about all these things. Not only does a sense of de-elevating God, which it doesn't. God is the chief. He's the creator ruler.
Mhm.
And there is a spirit world. But I like this question. How does this, what are the guardrails to make sure it doesn't go unorthodox?
Yeah.
Kind of in our sense of the Trinity, or even just the identity of God in other ways.
Yeah. It's there's an irony in the question because Jesus and the apostles so assume the divine counsel, and like once you see it and how they think and talk and write, it's everywhere. You can't unsee it. And so it's clear that for them, it's the exact opposite is true. Belief in a populated spiritual world, it's a mirror of the populated earthly world. For them, that makes even more clear Jesus's identity as the son of the true son of the ultimate son of Elohim. So it's hard to do it without actually just getting into actual text. But for the apostles, it actually clarifies that Jesus isn't a creature.
Get into some text.
But is actually one with the creator. Well, if we only have 3 minutes, I don't know.
do one. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Fine.
So actually here, where in the history of Christian orthodoxy, where groups have gone off the rails and identified Jesus as one of the sons of Elohim alongside the other sons of Elohim, what it usually is it's Western, somewhere in the European Western tradition, people just misunderstanding all of this divine counsel language in the Bible. So it's not that the concept of the divine counsel is what is leading people down the wrong path. It's just that we don't have room for it in our worldview, and so we have no idea what these authors are talking about.
Yeah.
So, for example, we've talked about the phrase "the sons of Elohim."
To refer to
is a Hebrew way,
heavenly host.
as a Hebrew way of saying just members of the spiritual realm.
Okay.
Just like
like sons of Adam is members of the human realm.
Yeah, totally. Or Elijah and Elisha always have hanging around them a crew called the sons of the prophets, and it's not their sons.
Yeah,
like they didn't have many wives and
yeah.
So it just means members of the little prophetic crew they had going on.
Got it.
It was their posse.
It's like Sons of Anarchy.
It was their prophetic posse.
Yeah. They're not all brothers of some biker gang guy.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when the phrase is used in the plural like this, it just means members of that category.
Yeah. Okay.
So when we see this in, the classic one is Genesis 6, and the sons of God, spiritual beings. Spiritual beings.
Yeah.
So I think where this trips people up then is they say, oh, look, okay, well, God has many sons.
Right.
So when you go to chapter 1 of Romans and you see, oh, here's Jesus. He's declared the Son of God by his resurrection from the dead. Oh, he's one of the sons of God.
One of the sons of God, yeah.
So that's ignoring how this language works in the Bible. So the sons of, and then you have a class, that's like a fixed Hebrew phrase.
Okay.
When you use a singular, the son of, now it's totally different phrase with a totally different set of connotations. So
I'm gonna have to take your word for that.
Well, here, I'll just show you some example. I'll just show you an example. So in the book of Exodus, God has a number of sons, singular sons in the Bible.
Okay.
The first one is his covenant people of Israel.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right.
He calls
Israel's my
his son.
firstborn.
Yeah.
So the son refers to someone who is in some special covenant unity with God. God appoints the line of David. This is in 2 Samuel chapter 7. God appoints the kings from the line of David and says, hey, David, this is in 2 Samuel 7, verse 12. I'm going to raise up your descendants after you, and I will be a father to your descendants. And each of your descendants who becomes kings will be a son to me, a representative to others, and one in whom I have the special covenant unity. So first of all, the singular is different than the plural. That's just one kind of helpful observation to make. And then the second is the New Testament authors just come out of the gate swinging to set Jesus as the Son of God as a category entirely of its own. To make it clear that they don't think Jesus is a created being, that he is another category altogether. He is Yahweh incarnate. So they do this multiple ways. One is to call him the Word become human, the divine Word and purpose become a human being. But then in this phrase that the biblical authors use, the one and only Son.
Yeah.
So what they're doing there is they're using a phrase, in Greek it's monogenes, meaning the unique and one and only Son, to set Jesus apart from the sons of Elohim and from any other son of Elohim that you've read about in the Hebrew Bible. They're putting Jesus in a category completely of his own as a son. And then you just have to read the whole rest of the Gospel of John narrative, and he's just going to do all those mind benders that we're going to talk about in the God video, where he's going to talk about the Father as someone distinct from him, and then he'll just pull a stunt and say, the Father and I are one. So what on earth is that supposed to mean? He sure isn't like a star, a glowing star. You know what I'm saying? He's his own category of being unified.
So I think what's tricky is we've got this new
complex.
Hebrew
Let's just acknowledge
phrase.
This is complex.
It's complex. We got a Hebrew phrase,
That's right.
sons of, that's a class.
Correct.
And then, but you also have a phrase, it's a Greek phrase, or it's also
It's
a
just
Hebrew
the
phrase?
singular, the son of.
Well, no, and then the second one, sons of.
Oh,
I'm sorry, a son of, singular.
Yep, singular.
Is that used in Hebrew too? Yes.
Hebrew
We
and
looked at
Greek. Yeah.
Hebrew and Greek. And that's referring to someone who has a close kind of intimate covenant relationship of some sort with
with
the
God.
other,
That's right.
with God. So God would call Israel his son.
Yeah.
And so Jesus is given even a different title.
Yes, the one and only
The
son.
one and only son.
Yeah.
And that's kind of throwing
Which you
a
go
bone
like, well,
to like,
he has lots of sons.
yeah,
and that there are lots of
everyone
beings
in
who were-
Israel is one of his sons.
And totally, that's right. Yeah.
So they're going another way.
Correct.
Okay, cool. That's a mind bender. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a quick break. Tense is gonna play. I'm gonna look at YouTube, and we'll come right back. Thanks, Tense. This is my friend Brian Hall and his lovely wife Amy Hall, and this is Tense. Tense, not only are they good friends, but they have an incredible album that you can listen to on Spotify. And it's their music's so good. We chose that song "Defender" to be the intro to our podcast. So if you've been following the podcast, you're really familiar with that song. And you're going to re-release that track, right?
Yeah, it's available in the morning. We like scrambled to get it ready. It was like a track that we put out on an EP, like when we weren't working as hard on this project, and we didn't even put it like on streaming services. It was like 6 years ago. It was like there were more bands just putting records on Bandcamp, and I don't know. We didn't. So we're finally like releasing it because it's so many people are hearing it. We thought it'd be cool to share.
Yeah. If you listen to early episodes, the vocal tracks on there.
You were just a boy.
And then we cut the vocal track. Yeah. But that's gonna play us out in the end. Thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
For real.
Cool. So we'll post on social where you can get that track. We're gonna do a question from the next question.
That was good. It was good to calm down.
Yeah, where we kind of get amped up.
Well, I don't know. It's different when you and I are in a room alone.
Yeah, it's different energy.
Yeah, I'm like nervous.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Just like 1,500 people watching.
Oh yeah, switch over to the YouTube one. Don't you have it up? Yeah.
Yeah. So and then they're all leaving comments. So there's 1,500 people having a conversation as we sit in the room here. So hey, everybody watching online, you're awesome. Thanks for tuning in. You're making me nervous, but that's fine. It's no big deal. I shouldn't be bothered by that. So anyway, but that music helped calm me down.
Someone from Tokyo.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So we have another question.
Another question.
I think we're Ryan Craycraft. Question read by Ryan. Yeah. Also.
My name is Ryan Dillon, and I'm asking on behalf of Brian.
Hold on. I don't think you're on. Yeah.
Check.
Oh,
there we go.
There we are. My name is Ryan Dillon, and I'm asking on behalf of Ryan Craycraft from Middletown, Ohio. Tim, you mentioned that Elohim only refers to a non-physical spiritual being. However, when reading John 10:34 and 35, when being accused of blasphemy by the Jews for making himself God, Jesus appears to quote Psalm 82. Is it not written in your law, I said ye are gods, when speaking directly to Jews? What is your take on Jesus' response here? And how do both the scriptures of John 10 and Psalm 82 relate to Elohim used in Exodus 22, where the word judges was translated from Elohim?
Yeah, we got about 12 different versions of this very question.
Yeah.
So here, just to set it up for context, to remember, and why it's good to talk about this. So Psalm 82 is a crucially important, just like Psalm 8 is this dense statement of Genesis 1, thinking, but refracted through the whole biblical story. Psalm 82 is similar with, it's a condensed statement of the whole storyline of the Bible in terms of the sons of God and the divine council and the role that they play in the storyline. Following. So remember the storyline in Genesis was you have the heavenly rulers and the earthly rulers.
Yeah.
Both are in rebellion in the course of Genesis 1 to 11.
Yeah.
Cosmic rebellion up from heavenly and earthly. And what that all leads up to is the Tower of Babylon, where you have humans who are trying to build up their kingdom in Babylon up into the skies, right?
Yeah, up into
across the boundary line.
Yeah, get up to the stars.
That's right. So, and then what God does is he scatters Babylon out among the nations. As you look at how later biblical authors think about that event, they see that as yet another cosmic rebellion. And in Deuteronomy 32, it's absolutely crucial. Moses, as he's retelling the story of Israel, he's retelling the story of how God chose Israel out from among the nations. And when he retells the story, NAS is not going to help us here. ESV, I'm reading. He looks back and he says, hey, remember the days of old, or go read the book of Genesis. When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he divided up humanity. Oh, when in the biblical story did God divide
After the
up
Tower of Babel.
the nations? The scattering of Babylon. And God knew what he was doing. He fixed the borders, or he fixed the territories of the people according to the number of the sons of Elohim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird.
Totally.
Yeah. He's like, okay, you people get this angel, this heavenly host. You get this one. You get this one.
Yes. So there's a heavenly and earthly rebellion.
Yeah.
And essentially, what Moses is saying is what's happening there is God was disinheriting humanity, handing them over to the rebel sons of God. And again, you don't just get that from here. You get it from reading Deuteronomy 32 in light of all the sons of God stuff in Deuteronomy, which is in chapter 4, 11, and 29. In light of Genesis 6 and 11. I'm so sorry, you guys. But the people who wrote these books are total nerds.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and they assume that you are
You're
tracking
a nerd
with everything
too.
as you go along. And so what's happening here is God's handing over, just like he hands creation over to rebel humans, he hands rebel humans over to the rebel sons of God.
This is not going to go well.
No, it's the cosmic rebellion. But he chooses one people through whom he's going to bring about a new humanity.
Okay.
And that's all going to be channeling towards Messiah. But we're not there yet. So essentially what Psalm 82 is, it's a reflection on that. He accuses them of is expressed in the earthly realm, especially towards the weak, the orphan, the afflicted, the destitute. Are you with me?
Yeah.
And so this is how the biblical authors see this is how Jesus saw the world.
That when humans are doing bad things to people, especially marginalized people,
yes,
that is in some way also the heavenly host rebelling, and it's all connected.
Yeah, it's a deeper connection. It's that when humans redefine good and evil on a corporate level, so that my definition of good and evil means that my well-being gets sustained at the expense of somebody else's well-being. And I redefine it as good, that we get to flourish, but they don't. Right? That's Babylon. Right? And that's human nature according to Genesis 1 through 11.
Yeah.
And so when human beings live that way on an individual and corporate level, we're actually participating in a form of cosmic evil. We're participating, and we become agents of evil that we don't see and understand.
That's heavy.
This is so profound.
Yeah.
This is a really profound way of seeing the world. And this is what I'm trying to wrap my mind around. This isn't just like the devil made me do it or the devil made them do it, so let's go drop bombs on them, right? Because they're the bad guys. The point is humans aren't the bad guys. We're just stupid. We're just really stupid. And as we have been since Genesis 3, right? And so we end up embracing our own self-destruction, thinking that it's the good thing to do. And in Genesis 3, it's humans participating and becoming agents of self-destruction, connected to a deeper force of evil that we don't really see and understand.
We're opening ourselves up to this deep cosmic.
Why else is evil depicted as a snake on page 3? We get hung up on all this stupid stuff about did it really talk or whatever. It's like, no, get the meaning. The meaning, the image itself is meant to be beyond your comprehension. There's something about the way I give in to evil and can redefine good and evil at the expense of others and think it's good. Like, what's happened? That's incomprehensible. That's about as incomprehensible as a talking snake. You know what I'm saying? Why I would think that way.
Yeah.
And so that's the core idea.
Also, snakes are sneaky and creepy.
That's right. There's a lot going on with
There's
the
a lot
snake.
going on.
I'm sorry. I'm getting on a rabbit trail. but the point is that this overlap of heavenly and earthly in the cosmic rebellion.
Yeah.
It's a really profound.
Biblical authors' imagination is completely.
That's right. That's right.
Soaked in that.
So in Psalm 82, God's showing up and he's saying no more. This is done for. So he says that the sons of God, the cosmic rebels, would be a good band name, cosmic rebels, are foolish. They don't have knowledge. And so what God says is, you know what? I made you Elohim. I said you are Elohim. Y'all are sons of the Most High. But nevertheless, you are going to die like mortals and fall like, in Hebrew, echad hasarim, like one of the princes. There's one princely son of Elohim that has fallen, and the rest of you are going to fall.
Like that one. Yeah.
Just read the Bible.
Your days are numbered.
And then look at the last one. Arise, O God, judge the earth. Because what's God after in the whole storyline of the Bible?
Bring everyone back.
To inherit all, not just one people group.
Yeah.
The whole point was that God becomes.
In order to do that, he actually has to take care of.
That's right.
These.
That's exactly right. So this
Would you call them
cosmic rebels.
Rebels.
Yeah, Psalm 82 is crucially important. It's essentially the same storyline as Daniel 7. Of God elevating, of God judging the beasts, the beastly rulers of heaven and earth, and installing
elevating
the true
the Son
human
of Man.
one on the divine throne next to him. Okay, so that's Psalm 82.
Okay, that's Psalm 82.
That's Psalm 82.
And Jesus in John 10
And Jesus
quotes Psalm 82.
Was really cared about Psalm 82.
Yeah.
He quotes from it. In John chapter 10, we're going to go with the New American Standard. He just finishes up a light conversation claiming, as a culmination to what came before, I and the Father are one. So drop that one at a party. And people will stare at you. So people pick up stones.
Yeah.
Blasphemy.
They didn't like that.
I and the Father are one.
Yeah.
Jesus said, they
pick up stones because that's how you kill people.
That's right.
They're not like going to
That's right. They're going to
play a game.
For blasphemy.
Yeah.
That's
like a stone game.
Right.
No.
Yeah. So Jesus is like, what? I healed a blind man, and you're going to kill me, right? For doing good works from the Father?
Mm-hmm.
No. It's because of blasphemy. You're a mortal, and you're making yourself out to be God.
Yeah.
As God. And Jesus said, have you ever read the Bible? And he says, is it written in your Torah? But then he quotes from the Psalms.
Yeah, he made a mistake there.
Right. So this is interesting, actually. Torah, in this period, this happens a lot in the New Testament. The apostles and Jesus will use the word Torah to refer to the whole Hebrew Bible. Jesus does it multiple times.
What's that called? A metonymy?
Yeah.
Synecdoche.
I get these wrong.
Hey.
Yeah, we're the part for the whole.
Yeah, the part for the whole.
So the Torah is the first part of the scriptures.
Yeah, and it can refer to the whole thing.
Because clearly he's saying, isn't it written in the Torah? And he quotes from the Psalms. Yeah. So isn't it written in the scriptures? And he quotes Psalm 82. I said you are God's. Yep. Now, if God called Elohim, or in Greek, theos, those to whom the word of God came, and scripture is reliable, why do you say of the one whom the Father has sanctified, that is set apart as holy, and sent into the world, you're blaspheming because I say, I am the Son of God? Is everybody clear?
So wait, so his logic is because in Psalm 82, God, there are other Elohims.
Yeah. God.
Then
that's right.
Why can't Jesus be one? That's his logic?
His logic is, so he's just been called out. You are making yourself as God.
Yeah.
And I and the Father are one.
Yeah.
So whatever his appeal to Psalm 82, it's bolstering that claim that he just made. And he's about to make it again. I am in the Father and the Father is in me. So his appeal to Psalm 82 is an argument to say, listen, I'm not blaspheming and I'm not crazy. So he's appealing to Psalm 82 to say, listen, there are beings that God can call his sons that are higher than humans, and they're legitimately called the sons of Elohim. This is the conversation we just had earlier.
Yeah.
Right? There's a category for the divine council.
Yeah.
Sons of Elohim.
And no one would have argued with that.
Totally. Yeah. Right. That's exactly right. That's his point. So if you all acknowledge in your Bible that there are members of the spiritual being category, then why is it so crazy that I am claiming that I am a human who's completely one with Elohim? That's his argument.
This is his argument.
Yes.
It's still crazy.
Yeah, but his point is that if you read the Hebrew Bible, you
Mhm.
have shelf space
Yeah.
for beings that aren't just mortal and for beings that share in characteristics of God's heavenly being,
Yeah.
but that aren't the one true God.
And what's crazy about these sons of God that they also they are spirit beings, but in the Bible they show up physically sometimes.
Yeah, that's right.
And that actually
That's
kind of leads us
exactly
to this next question.
Yes.
Part of the next question. Or you're not
yeah,
done
so
yet?
sorry. Just to finish responding
Okay.
to Ryan's point. So many people think that the sons, that the Elohim in Psalm 82 are humans being called Elohim. And you can actually see this in the New the New American Standard Version. They just use the word rulers in the place of Elohim.
Right.
And so that obscures that it's the word Elohim.
Yeah.
Right? That's normally God.
Yeah.
So that has led many people to think that in John chapter 10, Jesus is appealing to Psalm 82 as if he's saying that Psalm 82 is talking about humans, but the ones to whom the word of God comes in Psalm 82 are Elohim.
Yeah.
That's his whole argument in the poem.
Yeah.
So there aren't any clear examples of humans being called Elohim in the Hebrew Bible. It's always referring to either one God
Exodus
himself
22,
or
where they put the word judges in.
correct. Yes. Oh
It's
yeah.
likely referring to.
That's right. So some people, this is so nerdy. I know this is so nerdy, but this is, if you care about this question, there's 78 people in the world who care. That's fine. But in the book of Exodus, there's a law that says, hey, listen, when a thief gets caught in ancient Israel and you want to hold him to account, then bring him before, and the New American Standard has the judges. And then they tell you in a footnote, oh, actually, or God.
Yeah.
And you're like,
That's
oh,
a big difference.
that seems like a really big difference.
Yeah.
Can you guess what the Hebrew word is?
Elohim.
Elohim, yes. So the English Standard Version. Yeah, here it is. If the thief is found, he shall come near to God.
Mm-hmm.
Elohim.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people who think that this is so clearly talking about bring him before a courtroom.
So not capital G God, but the sons of
yeah,
God.
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, but for the Israelites to come to God in Exodus 22 is
Would
to
be
go
to
to the
the
tabernacle,
chief God.
to go to the tent
there, yeah.
with Moses.
Yeah.
And there are numerous places. Actually, here, I'll just show you one, just because Ryan Craycraft, I'm sure you're going to appreciate this. Check out Deuteronomy 19:16. Deuteronomy chapter 19. If a malicious witness arises to accuse a person of wrongdoing, both parties of the dispute shall appear before the Lord, namely before the priests and before the judges. So here's a case where somebody's accused of something and they are brought before Elohim,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yahweh is an Elohim. And then when I want to make clear that I also mean the human judges, you just name them.
Mm-hmm.
Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
So in Exodus 22, the fact that the human judges aren't mentioned is significant. When you're bringing your case before judges appointed by God, you're bringing it before God.
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And so people who want to make an argument that Exodus 22 is a use of humans being called Elohim, it's just a bad argument. You just don't want to do that. That's a nerdy translation point.
Yeah.
That all connects to John.
Well, what's interesting about
Psalm 82.
About both like this idea of when you're bringing it to you're bringing
Yes.
something to the court.
Yes.
You're actually not just bringing it to humans.
Yeah,
like
that's right.
God cares. There's
Yes.
another level.
That's right.
Like of
Yes.
that happening.
That's right.
And it's the same idea of
Totally.
when humans are rebelling. It's not just you're being mean to a person.
Yes.
It's no, you're participating in this
Yeah.
cosmic rebellion.
Cosmic evil.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, this is a heaven and earth connected worldview. It's all the way back to the first video.
If you lived every moment of your day thinking that way, what do you think you would? What would that do for you? Like, how often do you think that? How often you walk around thinking like, "Oh, my actions right now." Like, like you don't drive very much, but like when I drive, I get angry at people.
You participate in cosmic rebellion.
Am I participating in cosmic rebellion when like, yeah.
I mean, it's a way. I think it's that the biblical authors want us to see that we inhabit a world that has a purpose and has meaning, but it's also something's gone dreadfully wrong, and that our decisions matter. Like if we really are images of God's power and rule and character in the world, that has great potential to go awesome or to create hell on earth. Usually it's the latter. And I think that's what it means to live in this worldview, is to realize like my moral choices are not private matters. They're cosmic matters. Right? We're into the worldview of Proverbs here. And the fear of the Lord and living with the grain of the universe. It's I don't know how else to say it. So if anything, I think it instills within our day-to-day life decisions a cosmic narrative that gives meaning and purpose to our lives. And what is the biblical story except a cosmic story? That we're to begin to see our lives through. So
I went camping on Labor Day weekend, backyard camping, like cheating camping. And we're looking at stars.
You had a tent in your backyard?
Not my backyard, another guy's backyard.
Okay.
And it was the first time after this conversation about the heavenly hosts and all that stuff, and we're just looking at the stars. And it just was like, it helped me remember this cosmic significance. Usually, on a night where you can see the stars, it is majestic. But now thinking about the whole storyline through that makes it much more meaningful. Were we a little overambitious with how many questions we think we'd get through?
We always are.
We'd
like pick out a dozen questions and we get through 5.
That's all the time we have. So I want to thank you all for coming here. Thank you everyone there's I think YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. Hi everyone. Thanks for coming. Thanks to Dan. This is Dan Gummel here. He is our producer of the podcast. He's in from Ohio. And Miriam, who's our project manager.
Dan spends more time listening to our voices
probably
than
anyone.
Any other human on the planet. And I'm sorry.
And he still likes us.
But thank you. You do amazing work in producing these podcasts. Thank you for your hard work.
Yes. Thank you. What we're going to do is we are going to wind this down with tents, and then we're going to come back and we're going to watch two videos that are the premiere of season 5. So hang with us. And tents, take it away.
This is it. This is the release of season 5, which is pretty cool. For those of you who have been paying attention, you may be like, I don't quite remember seasons 1 through 4. That was just when we kind of locked Tim and John in a closet and made them just do videos every single month. And so we are excited to have a couple months of a little bit of a reprieve during the summer to be able to put out just 20 amazing videos this next year. We kind of have a tradition when videos get released, though. Normally, we don't do it with all of you guys here live. We are all just like sitting in a room. And so we kind of want to recreate that moment. And so in just a second, I'm going to invite Miriam to come on up. Miriam, our producer. And she's going to kind of walk us through the 2 videos that are going to be released today. And we get to It's metaphor, which is cool. It's bad words, which I thought bad words was just going to be initially Hebrew profanity. It's not at all. Tim said we couldn't do that at all. So these are actually like videos on like sin and transgression. And so it's pretty exciting. So do your normal thank yous.
Okay. Hi, everyone. A big part of our video launches is this red button that we will use to launch the videos. But before we launch, I just wanted to thank all of the people that helped produce this video. It's actually a lot of hands that end up touching any video before it goes live. And so I wanted to lead you through a little bit of the process. The first video we're going to release is from our How to Read the Bible series. This is the 10th video from the series that has, I think, maybe 19 videos that are coming out in it. And this one's on metaphor in the Bible. Any video starts with a script. John and Tim write those scripts, as you've already heard. So that's step one. And they also creatively direct on the project. There's always an art director on this project. Everett Patterson, you around here? Oh, he just had a baby like a few weeks ago. So that's very exciting. Go Everett. Everett Patterson and Robert Perez were the art directors on this video. Everett also storyboarded the entire video. Everett also illustrated along with Nisa Oru, which is fun to kind of see their different styles come out in a single video, as you'll see. Then that gets passed to our animator, Josh Swain, passed over to our sound designer, Reed Harvey. And then graphics get made by Matthew Halbert Hohen, excuse me. And then we arrive at this moment where we're about to share the video with you all. And you guys are a huge part of the process, being supporters of the project. We couldn't make the videos without you all. So without further ado, I'm going to need someone. We're going to use the button.
Can I hold it?
Yeah, you can hold it. Hey, do you want to come up and press the button for us?
Wait, well, what happens once he does it?
Once he does it, magically somehow the video is going to play.
We're gonna count down.
Well, let's just see what happens when he hits the button.
But they don't need to all count along with something?
Nah, we'll see what happens when he presses the button.
Thank you.
Okay, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
So we're learning how to read biblical poetry, which makes up over 30% of the Bible.
Yeah, poetry is a way of writing that doesn't just communicate information. It invites us to experience ideas with our imaginations, using creative imagery, or what we would call metaphorical language.
All right, let's talk about imagery and metaphor in biblical poetry.
So some things in life are easy to understand because they're tangible, physical experiences, like being cold.
Yeah, being cold is no fun.
But other experiences aren't as concrete, like when somebody doesn't like you.
But that's no fun either.
So two very different things, but notice how your mind has linked them together without you knowing it. So when we say things like, she gave me the cold shoulder, or don't be so cold.
You could also flip it around and think of affection as warmth. It took him a while to warm up to me, or she's a warm person.
Exactly. So we take a basic concept like warmth, and then we map it onto an abstract concept like affection. It gives us a more imaginative way to talk about our experiences.
We're thinking in metaphors.
Yeah, they provide the framework for how our minds make sense of the world. Metaphors govern all of our thinking and language.
Like right there, metaphors govern. That's a metaphor in and of itself, saying that ideas are rulers.
Or think about a connected metaphor that competing ideas are at war.
Yeah, in a debate, I have to defend my position and provide backup so I could win the argument.
And so you can see metaphors aren't just a fancy way of writing, they're everywhere in our language. And the metaphors we use shape our imaginations and our behavior. And so it's no surprise that the biblical poets constantly use metaphorical imagery.
Now, some metaphors in the Bible are easy to understand, like light is good and darkness is bad.
But remember, the biblical poets lived in an ancient culture, which means that some of their metaphors might seem kind of strange to us.
Like what?
Okay, so picture chaotic water, like a deep, stormy ocean.
Got it.
Now, think about a time you were in danger, and then map those two onto each other, and
danger is like chaotic waters.
Right. And then the biblical authors take it further. They also talk about dangerous people as stormy waters, like in Psalm 69. Save me, O God, for the waters are up to my throat. I've entered the deep waters. My enemies outnumber the hairs of my head.
Oh, the enemies are dangerous waves.
Yes, and so are enemy nations. Like in Isaiah 17, woe to the nations that rage like the raging, roaring seas. Or in Psalm 89, O Lord, you rule the swelling seas. You scatter enemies with your mighty arm.
So this is a basic metaphor for danger and chaos in our world. But God has the power over chaotic waters.
Right. And this foundational image is so important, it's introduced on page 1 of the Bible.
Oh, right. The uncreated world in Genesis 1 is a dark, chaotic ocean that God brings order to.
Exactly. The image begins there and then develops throughout the rest of the Bible, and so does its opposite. If chaotic water is a fundamental image of danger, think about what dry land would represent.
Dry land would be safety, security, stability.
Exactly. Some of the most basic human desires. And that is what God's providing when the dry land appears in the opening pages of Genesis.
And this is also where God plants the Garden of Eden.
And it's no average garden. It's described with imagery of an ancient temple, high above those dangerous waters. And then from this garden temple flows a river that waters everything.
So the human ideal is to be with God in a mountain garden temple.
Yes, this image permeates biblical poetry. Like when David celebrates God's presence in the temple in Psalm 65.
How blessed is the one who's satisfied with goodness in your temple. A stream of God waters the land. You still the roaring of the waves and the turmoil of the nations.
Now watch. Because the temple was associated with being close to God's presence, this high rock could become a metaphor for God himself. Like in Psalm 18, the Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer.
And that's the image Jesus is drawing on when he says that listening to him is like building your house on the rock.
Exactly. And so notice how these rich metaphors in biblical poetry are rooted in images from earlier biblical narratives. That's how metaphors work in the Bible. You need the narratives to understand the poetic images, and the images reveal deeper meaning in those narratives.
Cool. Now, the largest collection of poetry in the Bible is the Book of Psalms.
And learning how to read the Book of Psalms, that's what we'll talk about next.
All right, and we've never done this before, but we're launching 2 videos the same day in honor of season 5 being released tomorrow. And so this is another video. It's from our word study series. It's actually from the Bad Word series. The first couple videos in that series were sin, then transgression, and now we have the delightful video on iniquity. So this is another group of people, strips still written by John and Tim. The art directors on this video, Patrick Murphy and Robert Perez. And then storyboarding, Patrick Murphy and Andrew Imamura. They also illustrated and animated, just quite a duo all the way through. And then, similarly, we had Reed Harvey on sound design and Matthew on the graphics. So here we go. No countdown this time. We'll only make you do that once for us. So here we go.
People assume the Bible has a lot to say about how messed up humans are, and that's true. It's also true that the Bible's vocabulary about this topic sounds odd to modern people, using words like sin, iniquity, or transgression. And so the Bible's perspective on the human condition is often ignored or treated as ancient and backwards. This is really unfortunate, because through these words, the biblical authors are offering us a deeply profound diagnosis of human nature. Sin refers to moral failure, and transgression describes how we break trust with others. And iniquity, no one even uses that word anymore. So what's it all about? In Bible translations, iniquity is one way the Hebrew word avon gets translated. It's also rendered by words like wickedness, guilt, or sin. So what does avon actually mean? The word avon is related to a Hebrew verb avah, which means to be bent or crooked. The poet of Psalm 36 says his back is avad, that is, bent over in pain. Or in Lamentations chapter 3, a road that isn't straight is one that avaz, that is, it's twisty and crooked. Now, this image of being crooked offered biblical poets a powerful metaphor to talk about people's behavior. Like Jeremiah, who said that Israel had avad their way by violating their covenant with God and giving allegiance to idols. Or in the book of Job, a person who morally fails is someone who avaz what is right. In both cases, something that's supposed to be level or even, your choices or your conscience, has been bent out of shape, distorted. In the Bible, avon refers to all kinds of crooked behavior. 10 Commandments kind of stuff. Lying, murder, adultery. In Isaiah chapter 59, avon describes the corruption among Israel's leaders who were ignoring the injustice done to the poor. The prophet cleverly adapts the metaphor, saying, we have so much avon, that is crookedness, that uprightness can't even enter our city. Things were so morally distorted in Jerusalem that crooked was the new straight. Another fascinating thing about the word avon is that it refers not only to distorted behavior, but also to the crooked consequences, the hurt people, the broken relationships, the cycles of retaliation. You find this idea in the biblical phrase to punish, which in biblical Hebrew is to visit someone's avon upon them. That is, to let them sit in the consequences of their crooked choices. This is what the prophet Jeremiah said about the Babylonians, who were destroying other nations. One day, those nations would destroy them in return. And so Babylon's divine punishment would be having to live in a disfigured world of its own making. This is actually the main way biblical authors talk about God's response to human avon, letting people experience the crooked consequences of their choices. This is the meaning of the common biblical phrase, to bear your iniquity, or in Hebrew, to carry your avon. God gives people the dignity of carrying the consequences of their bad decisions. But that's not the only way God responds to avon in the Bible. He also offers to carry the avon of corrupt people as an act of sheer generosity. In fact, carrying avon is the most common Hebrew phrase for God's forgiveness. Like Psalm 32, where the poet says, I didn't hide my avon, but confessed it, and you carried the avon of my sin. This is actually shocking if you stop and think about it. God forgives people by taking responsibility for their avon. This idea reaches its high point in the book of Isaiah, where God appoints a figure called the servant. He will embody God's forgiving love by carrying the avon of many and allowing it to crush him. This servant will absorb humanity's crookedness, letting it overwhelm and destroy him. But that's not the end of the story. The servant will emerge out the other side of death, alive and well, so he can offer his life to others. When you get to the New Testament, the apostles carry these ideas forward using the Greek word onomia, which has a similar meaning. Like Paul the Apostle, he identified the servant as Jesus, and he said, our great God and Savior, Jesus the Messiah, gave his life on our behalf in order to redeem us from all of our onomia, our crooked behavior and its consequences. And so, the whole biblical story is about God's desire to take crooked people and the twisted world that we've created and to make everything right. Through Jesus, God invites us to become whole humans once again, people who can walk upright with God and with each other. And that's the story behind the biblical words for iniquity.
Guys, thank you so much for coming tonight. We are really excited for season 5. Like Miriam said, there's about 20 videos in total we're releasing between now and June, a video every other week. I feel incredibly grateful to be a part of this team, many of who are here, to work with Tim. And thank you guys for coming. Thanks for everyone who's online watching, and then everyone listening to this on the podcast. What we're going to do is we're going to just move a couple chairs around. In about 5 minutes, Tense is going to jam out, and you can hear their amazing album, one of my favorite albums. They're going to play some songs from that. So please hang out and just hang out with us and enjoy that music. And feel free to grab some more food if there is next door. Thanks for coming. Have a wonderful night. See you later.